Welcome to Cool History. Today, we're diving into a monumental chapter in global history, the women's suffrage movement. This captivating story is filled with valiant efforts, remarkable individuals, and critical achievements that helped shape the world we live in. So grab your favorite snack, sit back, and let's explore the fight for women's rights to vote. And don't forget, if you enjoy our content, please subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical stories. The struggle for women's suffrage didn't arise in a vacuum. It was born out of a complex interplay of societal norms, historical events, and burgeoning movements advocating for equality. In the early 19th century, women were often relegated to domestic roles, expected to maintain the household while men dominated political and public life. However, as the Age of Enlightenment took hold, ideas of individual rights and liberties began to permeate society. Key historical events, such as the Enlightenment and the American and French Revolutions, laid the intellectual groundwork for challenging the status quo. Influential thinkers like Mary Wollstonecraft, author of A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, argued for gender equality and education, planting the seeds for the suffrage movement. The first formal calls for women's rights began to materialize in the feminist movements of the mid-19th century. The Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 in the United States is often recognized as the cornerstone of the women's rights movement. Organized by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, this gathering brought together women and men who believed in gender equality. At the convention, the attendees drafted the Declaration of Sentiments, a document that boldly declared the rights of women and included the demand for the right to vote. This bold declaration marked the first time women openly contested their exclusion from political decision-making. Following Seneca Falls, activism gained momentum. Women began forming societies and organizations dedicated to spreading awareness about suffrage. Among these was the American Equal Rights Association, co-founded by Stanton and Anthony, which aimed to advocate for civil rights for all people, regardless of gender or race. The suffrage movement also intersected with other reform movements, such as abolitionism. Many suffragists, including Sojourner Truth, a former enslaved woman, emphasized the intersectionality of race and gender, stressing that the fight for women's rights was inseparable from the fight against slavery. As the movement matured, differences in strategy emerged. Some suffrage advocates, like Stanton and Anthony, pursued a more radical agenda, while others favored a more gradual approach, seeking to work within existing political structures. This divide became especially pronounced when the 15th Amendment was passed in 1870, granting African American men the right to vote while still excluding women. Frustrated by this exclusion, Stanton and Anthony founded the National Woman Suffrage Association in 1869 to focus solely on women's suffrage. Meanwhile, Susan B. Anthony became a prominent spokesperson, traveling the country to speak about women's rights and rallying support. Across the Atlantic, in the UK, the suffrage movement was gaining traction. Emmeline Pankhurst, along with her daughters Christabel and Sylvia, founded the Women's Social and Political Union in 1903. This organization adopted a more militant approach to suffrage, believing that aggressive actions were necessary to draw attention to their cause. The WSPU employed tactics such as hunger strikes, protests, and public demonstrations. Women chained themselves to railings, threw stones at windows, and engaged in civil disobedience, all aimed at challenging the government's indifference to their demands. Pankhurst famously stated, "Deeds, not words," emphasizing the need for action. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 significantly altered the suffrage landscape. As men went off to war, women stepped into roles previously occupied by males, taking on jobs in factories, offices, and farms. This shift highlighted the indispensable contributions women made to society, challenging traditional gender roles. Post-war, public opinion began to shift in favor of women's suffrage. Many believed that since women had proven their capability and worth during the war, they deserved the right to vote. In the U.S., this sentiment culminated in the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, granting women the right to vote after decades of struggle. In the UK, women over the age of 30 gained the right to vote with the Representation of the People Act 1918, while full equal suffrage was achieved in 1928, allowing women to vote on the same terms as men. The women's suffrage movement left an indelible mark on history. It not only secured voting rights for women, but also laid the groundwork for future advancements in gender equality. Activists inspired subsequent generations to continue fighting for civil rights, including reproductive rights, equal pay, and representation in government. While significant strides have been made, the fight for women's rights continues today around the world. Many women still face systemic barriers, voter suppression, and inequality in various forms. The legacy of the suffrage movement serves as a reminder that the struggle for equality is ongoing. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the women's suffrage movement. We explored the deep-rooted historical context, the dedicated individuals who fought for change, and the impact that these efforts had on future generations. The fight for women's rights serves as a powerful example of determination and resilience in the face of adversity. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about fascinating historical events and figures, please subscribe to Cool History. Your support helps us continue to create engaging and informative content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, keep exploring the amazing stories history has to offer. Thank you for watching.